Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Savannah River Fisherman Video Podcast. Thank you for joining us. Before we get started with today's guest, which is I am really pumped about, just a couple of things. Just remember, if you haven't yet visited the website, we've got SavannahRiverFisherman.com website that I try and keep everybody updated on all the tournaments from all the lakes on the Savannah River chain. Actually, and more than that, I do Lake Jocassee, Kiwi, Hartwell, Russell, Clarks Hill, and even the river down below Clarks Hill. So if you're looking for tournament information, that's probably the place to get it. While you're there, you can pick yourself up one of these cool hats we have sitting here. It's really the only way that we have to fund what we're doing, to minimize at least what's out of pocket from it. And we've got a Facebook page, Savannah River Fisherman Facebook page, and a Savannah River Fisherman YouTube channel. So check all that out. It'll help us out a lot. We appreciate it. So today's guest is Neil Paul. Neil, I almost called you Neil Peart, the Rush's drummer. Neil Paul. Neil is the executive director of the Anderson, Visit Anderson, I believe is the actual name of it, right?
Yep.
Along with that, and when I first started communicating with Neil, I had no idea how big of a reach he has. He's actually also on the board of directors for the South Carolina, what's the name of the Sports Authority, isn't that the name?
Sports Alliance.
Sports Alliance, South Carolina Sports Alliance, and also the one that really impressed me and stood out to me, he's on the board of directors for the Bass Fishing Hall of Fame. He's a man who kind of is plugged in and knows what's going on. He's got a lot of good things going on that we're going to talk about today. So Neil, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here. This will be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I totally agree. It is. We try and have a good time, so we don't take ourselves too seriously. You know? So before we start talking about fishing, like I said, you're the executive director of Visit Anderson, and what kind of things do they do other than fishing?
Well, so Visit Anderson we're the destination marketing organization for Anderson County and the city of Anderson. So
Okay.
We're funded primarily on the lodging tax. It's called accommodation in South Carolina. It's called accommodations tax. Accommodations tax is collected obviously from your Airbnbs, your campgrounds, your hotels, things like that, and we're funded by a percentage of that tax.
Okay.
So I tell people the biggest difference between us and the Chamber of Commerce is the Chamber wants you to come to town and lay roots and become a part of the community.
Right.
We want you to spend your money and go home. So we've been extremely fortunate. Obviously, at Visit Anderson, we've had, I'm in my 15th year there. I've been the director. I was the interim director beginning in about May of 2015. I was the interim director for about 16 months, and then had the opportunity to have the interim tag removed. And so we've had the opportunity to serve as the executive director since October of 2016. And we've, I tell people, the director that hired me, she and I worked together 2.5 years. And then her husband got a job in another community. They moved away, brought in another director. She and I worked together about 2.5 years, and then she left to pursue other opportunities. And I thought I was pretty confident that I could do the job if I had the opportunity.
Yeah.
And so when I got that opportunity to serve as an interim, and as corny as it sounds, the county had just opened Green Pond Landing. And I tell people I knew just enough fishing to be dangerous. And so I felt like my success and our success at Visit Anderson was going to, as corny as it sounds, sink or swim on the lake. And so we put a lot of resources and a lot of time and effort in promoting Green Pond as a facility, promoting the lake as the top asset in Anderson County, and the rest is history. I think the leadership of Anderson County deserves a lot of credit for the development of Green Pond and that whole vision. I just came along at the right time and got the resources to be able to go out and market and promote the facility, and it's obviously been a great match for us.
And I know that I'm not from here. I moved up here though in the late '70s, but Lake Hartwell really. It wasn't until Green Pond came along that it really blossomed into the national prominence that it has.
Well, and I tell people all the time, I feel like we've always had, and this is, because I'm not from here either.
Right.
Right. So I tell people, when I came here, the Anderson community it's a special community, and it's a very supportive community, and it's a fishing community, and the lake has always been a great resource. I felt like the two, having worked for the two directors prior to becoming the director, I felt like we sort of underutilized the lake. We've all been in a situation where we've watched somebody work and we think, boy, if I could do it, if it was my opportunity, like I'd do it this way, or I'd do it that way. And I always just felt like that we had underutilized the lake, that we sort of took for granted that it was there. And Green Pond, I've told this a lot, Green Pond's sort of the glue that put it all together. Green Pond was the glue that connected the lake to the community in so many other ways. And so understanding that, I felt like gave me an advantage, and it gave us an advantage at Visit Anderson, and it was an opportunity to showcase our community through the lake, and it was an opportunity to showcase the lake through the community, and the facility is what allowed us to do that.
Well, and it's done a lot of economic good for the community, right? Can you give us some feel for
Not
what
just,
that
well,
looks like?
and again, keep in mind the majority of the numbers come from two classics. Okay. So the 18 class, the 15 classic, the 18 classic, and then hosting the 22 classic, and it's not just Anderson County; it's the upstate of South Carolina that really has benefited from Green Pond. And so numbers, that we put together, with Anderson County is that, in Green Pond will be 10 years old in December.
Okay.
And so in the 10 years nearly 10 years that Green Pond's been open and hosted large events, the economic impact to the upstate of South Carolina exceeds $100 million. Wow. And so
that's pretty
impressive. And it's been, we've had, it's not just, served our local anglers and our local community, but it's served regionally and nationally and even internationally. We've had quite a few countries that have come, and fished here with various events. So.
And you're the guy that goes out and gets that, right? I mean, that's kind of part of what you do?
It is. That's what we do, again, at Visit Anderson.
Right.
I mean, obviously, we're trying to generate business that's going to generate those overnight stays, and fishing tournaments certainly do that. So it was one of those deals, like, like I said, I felt like I knew just enough fishing to be dangerous. And honestly, really, working on that first classic that we had in 2015, that, I grew up fishing. The tournament bug never really bit. I've never been a tournament angler.
Okay.
But I just love it. I mean, I think about, some aspect of fishing, I think about it every day. And working on that 15 classic it was kind of a window to open to me that was, hey, there's a whole business, there's a whole industry, there's a whole world out there beyond just what you see on television. And I became instantly addicted to it and wanted to know more about it, and just completely engrossed myself in the fishing industry. Just, it was a world that I knew it existed, but I didn't know a lot about it, and I wanted to know more. And I started getting involved with, whether it was, reading things, going to events, trying to learn as much as I could, because one, it was something that was very enticing to me, but it was also something that I felt like if we were going to be really, really good here, we needed to know this business inside and out, and that's the commitment that we made.
So are there more than just the Green Pond ramp that's in your purview, or are y'all just really isolated?
So we work very closely. With the Parks Department for Anderson County, and the Parks Manager, really, he doesn't get enough credit. Matt Shell, he doesn't get enough credit, to be honest with you. And I tell people, he and I are like an old married couple, like we can finish one another's sentences. And we work extremely close together on that part of it. He's a guy that, from a construction side and from the development of the facility, like, he's been there from day one. Okay. And he can talk about Green Pond when it was, just a wooded parcel on the side of the lake, And that whole, watching that whole thing come to fruition has just been tremendous. Like I said, he's where, because at the end of the day, Green Pond, it's one of like 42 parks in Anderson County, and so he's in charge of all those county parks. Where it becomes, when the ball kind of bounces to me is when it becomes an event facility, when it becomes time to put an event in there and host an event. I mean, we could, little Johnny could have his birthday party out there this weekend, and that really doesn't have a lot of bearing on my world, but it does, in our parks department. That's something that obviously becomes their event. When it becomes a tourism event, when it becomes an economic impact type event, that's where obviously we get more involved. But he and I work so closely together. I mean, we're in each other's ear every day, talking about whether it's, whether we're planning the next event, whether we're working on, like next week, for example, we've got the Bassmaster College National Championship. But I've also got a calendar in my desk that forecasts events out to 2030.
So is the goal to have, if you could, would you have a major event every weekend? Would you have somebody in there?
No, not at all. We don't have, so it's not economically feasible to do that. So, and then number two, and I tell people, is one of the hardest parts of the job is maintaining a balance between too much and not enough. So obviously at the end of the day, we're charged with growing the tourism product in Anderson County, and this is a big part of it. But also you want to maintain respect to the fishery, you want to maintain respect to the resource, and you also want to maintain the ability to understand that there's the local anglers, the local community, they want to enjoy it as well. But it's, so that's probably the toughest part of the whole deal, is just balancing that part of it. But no, I don't even know that if we had all the money to be able to do something like that we could feasibly put something out there all the time. There's times a year where, there's times in the year where, things, we'll run some things in sequence, large or small, and there's times where we don't have things. And so it's, again, balancing that schedule is probably the toughest part of the whole deal.
I can see that. I know our interview was with David Stout, the last one, and he and I were talking, and he was telling me about some of the things that y'all do, like when was it the high school tournament when it came in, and y'all bought all that ice and all the water treatment for everybody, and there's a lot that I'm sure y'all do behind the scenes to kind of take care of the fishery.
It is, and so and here's the thing, so like we understand that, I mean, obviously the fishery requires a lot of care, and we're only stewards of this thing while we're here. We gotta leave it better. The goal is to leave it better than we found it, right?
Okay.
So, the one question that we hear all the time, or the question that I get, or the conversations you get tied up in, whether there's stocking programs and things like that. Like that's beyond my scope. Like that's a South Carolina DNR thing, and when and they have their reasons for doing what they do, and but for what we do there at Visit Anderson, we understand that, and it's something that at Anderson County we've talked about. We understand that there are times throughout the year where we stretch the limits of the resource, whether it's with large events or tournaments consecutively or things like that. So we've tried. Obviously, we've I'll tell you, like I communicate constantly with the Corps and with the folks at DNR, and I'm constantly asking questions and trying to make sure that we're doing things the right way, and not only the right way but the best way. With what information that we have to work off of. And when we have tournaments and events, and we know it's going to be warmer weather, we always try to provide ice, for our anglers. I think you referenced a previous sit down with David Stout. We worked on an event together in June, the TBF High School World Finals and National Championship, and that brought 437 boats to the lake. It's the second largest, in our records anyway, it's the second largest tournament that's ever taken place on the lake. And so one of the things that we did was recognizing that we were going to really push the resource that week. We went out and we had, I think we ordered a truck of about, I want to say we were right at 2,500 bags of ice.
Wow.
That we ordered, and every boat got at least one, most two, and some 3 bags of ice to hit the water with that day. We had DNR came out and managed the fish care process for that event.
Excellent.
So we had DNR's involvement in it. We had the ice element, and then we worked with David. You know, David produces a live well treatment called Five Alive, and we worked with David, and we put, when the kids came through registration, every kid, not every boat, but every kid that participated in that event, I think we wound up in total, we did, I think, 12 or 1,300 bags. But we did quart Ziploc bags, and each Ziploc bag in it had 10 instructions for better fish care that came directly from the biologist at Bass.
Excellent.
Okay. We just rebranded it with our logos and the Green Pond logos, so it would be, so it's a organization neutral product, right?
Yeah.
And so, because TBF wasn't going to let us pack conservation bags with Bass branding and vice versa, and we respect that.
Yeah.
So we reproduced the cards with our branding, but it was 10 fish care tips. It was instructions on how to properly fizz a fish, and then each bag had 1 ounce bottle of live well treatment as well as a fizz needle. And each one of those kids got that bag when they came through registration. So we handed out 437 times 2 is each kid, and then David set up his trailer on site, and we had additional bags available each day for kids that either lost it, needed another one, wanted another one, whatever. So we put out somewhere between 12 and 13, about 1,200 bags that week, just with that stuff in it. So it was putting that out, and DNR even remarked when it was over about, and it was, you know, we had a 3 fish limit on the tournament instead of 5. So we took the steps that we needed to take to try and ensure the best care for the facility, and we do that with our other events too. And you know, this year, Anderson County, when I say this year, beginning in January, Anderson County began requiring a certificate of liability insurance for every event. We used to only collect it for a contracted event at Green Pond, but they began, like, if we, you know, mentioned little Joey's birthday party earlier, if you have a birthday party at Green Pond and it's on our calendar, you got to produce a certificate of liability insurance. And just like if it's the Bassmaster Classic, we got to do the same thing. So, and all points in between. So we're doing that. That's a county policy that we're carrying out. But then, with respect to, again, trying to take care of the fishery, we started requiring anybody that has a tournament date on the calendar, we're requiring a written conservation plan.
Okay.
Like, how are you going to take care of the fish? What resources and mechanisms do you have in place to ensure that you're taking care of the fish? Whether it's, you know, whether it's a sink, tanks for water, just things like that. Because what we saw in a few instances over the last couple of years was not everybody has that. You know, we're in a time and a place now where, you know, you and I can probably remember once upon a time when golf was so popular, you know, and everybody that wanted to have a fundraiser had a golf tournament. And it's that way now with fishing. And there's pop-up fishing tournaments everywhere now, kind of like pickup basketball games. And so we just got to do right by protecting our resource, and just, I think, requiring people to have those types of things in place, get people to start thinking with a conservation mindset.
You know, and I guess it's such a valuable economic asset, it would just not make sense not to take care of it. You know?
Oh, absolutely, no.
So, all right, so here's what before I do that, I know one of the things that I think you're interested in that I was reading about in the bio is you're really tied into trying to get young people involved in fishing, right? What have you got going on with that?
Well, so just that's probably the one thing, and I've said this before, we've had classics and we've had a lot of large events, and the things that we've done out there at Green Pond have all been just, we've done some phenomenal things with a lot of different events, but the thing that honestly, that for me that I'm most passionate about is youth fishing, and we joke with the kids sometimes, when you and I can remember back in the day, like when we wanted to fish during school, we had to cut school to go fishing, right? So the kids now get unexcused absences for it, and they're getting scholarships to go to college. It's a completely different world than what we're used to. But just, I've always had a passion for young people. Before I got into travel and tourism, this isn't the direction that I had intended to go. Like, I wanted to coach basketball in college, and that's what I wanted to do, because I wanted to be able to have a positive impact on young people and through the game of basketball. And so I was fortunate enough to be able to coach a few years in college, and ultimately we got fired for not winning enough games. And I didn't get one of those multi-million-dollar buyouts like they have going around now, so I had to go back to work, and that's how I stumbled into travel and tourism. But I just, that passion, that was the one thing through, that I just never could find, I always found myself kind of incomplete, and just impact and missing that opportunity to work with young people, impact young people. And so hosting a lot of the youth events and things that we do has sort of helped me do that. I spend a lot of time trying to interact and help with the local fishing teams around Anderson. I've had a great relationship with the folks down in Iowa at Crescent High School with their fishing program. We've done some things with the kids up at Wren in the past. Mark and Sherry Stone do a great job with the fishing program at Wren. Marty Walker does the Palmetto Boat Center High School Trail. We work with their events. Tony Gray, the state youth director for the South Carolina Bass Nation, we work with Tony on some of his events. And then hosting other events, whether it's a Bass High School event or a Bass Junior event or TBF, we've had the opportunity to, and just being able to interact with those young people and try to be some sort of a positive influence or role model to those that's really important to me.
Excellent. That's good stuff. And so the last thing that I can't help but ask you about, that I've got to, is this being on the board of directors for the Bass Fishing Hall of Fame. That has to be involved with being able to honor some of the legends of fishing. That's just got to be a really good thing. That's got to feel really good.
It is, and the Bass Fishing Hall of Fame has done a lot of tremendous work, and it obviously supersedes anything that I bring to the table. I've told, I came on the board in a year where, and I'll tell this story forever, but I came on the board in a year where they brought in Brandon Polnick and Kevin Van Dam. They decided the Hall of Fame decided they wanted an angler from each of the organizations as kind of a representative on the board. So Brandon Polnick came from the elites, and Van Dam came from Major League Fishing, and they both, and they're not just there, and I will say this, they're not just there as a figurehead to represent an organization. Those are two of the hardest working guys on the board that we have, and it's no secret to why they're successful in their own careers. You just watch how they work. I tell that a couple of stories. Just watching those two guys work. A couple years ago, we have the banquet on. We have our banquet on. It's typically always the last week of September, and the banquet's on Thursday night, and then we meet back as a board. We come back on Friday morning to clean up the room, break down the room, auction items that get boxed up, packed up, and shipped out that day. Some of the stuff we bring home and ship out once we get home. It's kind of a work day, and it's about a good half day. We get in there, and Kevin Van Dam says the day before, he says, I've got to be here. We had the induction ceremony that night, and he says, I've got to be back at Bass Pro Shops at 5:30 on on Friday morning to film commercials for Black Friday. And he says, but as soon as we're done, I'll come help you guys work. And they're like, no, like, don't worry about it. Go get some rest, start your trip home, whatever. And at 10 o'clock Friday morning, the door opens, in comes KVD, takes his jersey off, rolls up his sleeves, and goes to work just like everybody else.
Awesome.
And that's when, you realize, okay, there's a reason this guy's as successful as he is, because he does he handles his business the same way across the board. But I tell people the coolest thing was our very first board meeting we had, and I'm all excited about this. Like, I'm, trying to be professional and composed, and we go through and we introduce ourselves in the board meeting, and they go in alphabetical order. We're calling roll. We're on a Zoom call.
Okay.
And I tell people, there's still people that don't realize I'm on the board, because P-A-U-L Paul falls between P-A-L Polnick and V-A-N Van Dam in the alphabet. So people heard Polnick and people heard Van Dam, and nobody heard about the guy in the middle. So I joke about it, and I'm constantly having to introduce myself to everybody, because I was the most meaningless introduction in the entire deal. But no, it's been a lot of fun. It's a great group of people. The whole deal is to celebrate the sport of bass fishing, to promote the sport of bass fishing, and to preserve the sport of bass fishing. And that's what we're all about. We have a youth scholarship program that we've started, where we give scholarship monies to kids each year that are aspiring for careers in like wildlife management or biology, fisheries biology, some type of, like a conservation related background.
Right.
We've got a scholarship program that we award scholarships for that. We have a grant program that we've partnered with AFCO, where we give conservation grants out each year. And again, the whole thing is, to promote, preserve, and celebrate the sport of bass fishing. And it's a great sport. It's a great group of people. Johnny Morris has been so kind to us to make space in his, conglomerate out in Springfield, the Wonders of Wildlife Aquarium and Museum of Natural History. That's where the Hall of Fame's housed, and it's a great display. I'd recommend to anybody, if you love the outdoors, and not just fishing, but if you're a hunter or conservation, if you're anybody that loves the outdoors, that trip's got to be on your bucket list to go out there and see it. And I'm extremely blessed to get to do this.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, man, I really appreciate you coming and spending a little time talking about all this. There's a lot. People. You get on social media, and everybody's. Everybody talks to each other on social media, but it's rare to get the opportunity to get things from the horse's mouth, so to speak. So.
Well, I appreciate it. I appreciate the opportunity. It's been a lot of fun, and if I could just say this, we don't always get it right, at Visit Anderson, but we try really hard, and we give it our best every day. And we've got a tremendous staff. I couldn't be more proud. I guess what I would say, the reason a guy like me can be the director at Visit Anderson is because of the support that we get from Anderson County, the relationships that we have. And, with Anderson County, our staff we have a tremendous staff. There's 3 of us. I have 2 young ladies in the office with us, and they're there every day. And I saw on the website you can email any one of you guys. That's right. So our office we're downtown in Anderson, in the Anderson Arts Center. We're Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 5. Visitanderson.com. Feel free to stop in. You can, check us out on our website. You can email us, call us, whatever. And we're always there. We're always willing to help. And obviously, we just want to make our community, the best we can make it. That's a great way to end it right there. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We'll catch you next time. Neil Paul, thank you again for coming. Thank you. Yes, Enjoyed it. We'll see you on the water.